Welcome back to the Be Unexpected podcast with Wyatt Spalding and Jake Burnside. Today we're joined by Fremont High head football coach, Coach Lee Jennings. Coach Jennings, how's it going?
Good. How's everybody doing?
Good.
Good.
Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely.
So, Coach Jennings was a middle school track coach for Jake and I when we were in middle school, and then he was an assistant football coach. He coached the defensive backs when we were in high school, right?
Yeah, both defense backs and receivers a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Jake and I have gotten to learn from Coach Jennings over our high school career, and now he's the head football coach. And why don't you just tell us like where you grew up and how you got into sports?
Yeah, absolutely. I graduated from Columbus High, which is a little bit of a rival, obviously, with Fremont and Columbus, but graduated there and then did both football and track and went on to Peru State College and played football for them for 4 years and was lucky enough to get hired by Fremont Public Schools my first year of teaching, and I've been there ever since. I had a great experience in high school with a lot of my coaches. One coach in particular kind of got me interested in education and coaching, and he's actually the athletic director at Columbus High right now, and so he was kind of the guy that I looked up to and wanted to do what he did, and um, followed in his footsteps a little bit.
Awesome.
Sweet. When
So did you
you
play like
yeah,
wide receiver in college or defensive back?
I was a defense back. I played corner. I kind of started out as a corner, and then we were short on numbers my sophomore and junior year, so I played some safety, and then my senior year moved back to corner.
Nice.
at Peru, where now they're NAIA. Were they NAIA then, or was it D2, D3?
No, it was
Okay.
NAIA also when I played. We played. It was kind of before the GPAC, so we
Mm.
played a lot of GPAC teams. Once the GPAC was formed, then they played just each other. But we played Doane and Morningside and those types of schools. And then after that GPAC was formed, then like I said, we started getting into more like Kansas and Iowa schools that were halfway close.
Nice. So kind of going backwards, growing up and living in Columbus, who were kind of like your coaching role models or besides the coach you mentioned that you really looked up to, and did you have any siblings growing up that you were competitive with as well?
Yeah, I have one brother. He was 4 years younger than me, so he was a eighth grader when I was a senior. So we would kind of mess around a little bit, but there was enough of an age difference. It was kind of tough to be too competitive with each other, but we
Hmm.
would always still play catch and mess around and those types of things. As far as influences, I mean, the entire Columbus High staff was great, great people, great role models. Like I said, I stay in touch with those guys a lot. We just our district track meet yesterday was in Columbus, so I was able to catch up with those guys, and still a lot of them are still helping. And our head coach Dick Libby was a guy that was very solid fundamentally and just did things the right way. And so there, and then if you look at the bigger schemes of things, I was a kid in the '90s when Tom Osborne was at Nebraska and
Hmm.
Solich and all those guys. And so obviously at 12, 13, 14 years old, you see Nebraska winning national championships and winning, if not winning national championships, they're winning conference titles and doing those types of things. So kind of just a Nebraska kid through and through.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Growing up, I know that Wyatt and I have talked before, and even like when I was playing JC football, and like the day before you'd watch the Husker games, you're like, oh, I'm gonna be a Nebraska football player. I'm going to Nebraska. When you were younger, do you remember like, oh, I'm going to Nebraska. I'm going to NFL? Or was that kind of your mindset?
Yeah, when
Yeah.
when you're young, your dreams are always big, and I think as you get a little bit older, you realize what your potential actually is.
Hmm.
And I in high school both as I got a little bit older, kind of figured out that I'm not to the caliber of a Division I athlete, and so those dreams kind of changed a little bit, but still knew that I wanted to go on and play at the next level, whatever that might be. I had a pretty good track career also, and so I had a decision to make between track and football. And um, I was maybe a little bit better of a track athlete, but I love football more, and so that was a
Yeah.
decision that kind of drove me.
What events did you do in track?
I was a sprinter, so I was a 100, 200, 400, 4x1, 4x4. Kind of shifted more to the two and the four as I got a little bit older.
So Jake and I, we interview a lot of coaches that do team sports. But what lessons can you learn as a track athlete? Like it's a team, but it's really individual. Like what lessons did you learn and what
Right.
lessons do you teach your players?
Yeah, absolutely. And we coach track still at Fremont High, which has a huge tradition of good
Oh
track
yeah.
teams, and the boys and lately the girls teams have been state runners up and state champions in multiple years. But um, we and my track coaching staff at and when I was in high school did the same thing that Fremont High does. It's still a team, and so
Mhm.
yeah, each individual event, you're kind of responsible for that, and that's a little bit more individualized. But you're also not just running for yourself; you're running to score those team points, and
Mhm.
so the team factor of it is huge, and we try to convey that as much as possible. Although it's a individual event, we or I guess you could call it sport. We all try to convey it as much as possible, being a team aspect and team sport.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Now going forward, now being the football coach at Fremont and in track, so what kind of keeps you like going? I mean, is it stuff like this, like former students and former athletes like reaching out to, just building the relationship over the years and still having that relationship with many kids? Is that kind of what really just gets you going?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of that, right?
Hmm.
Seeing you guys and then just even catching up on email a little bit. I haven't had a chance to talk to you in I don't know how many years. Obviously, we love to see kids come back
Hmm.
and talk to our programs and be part of our programs. And it's always a chance to in coaching to work with good kids.
Yeah.
And teaching, teaching's great, but you always have those kids that don't necessarily want to be there. And
Hmm.
so
Right.
when you're coaching a sport,
Yeah.
you get to work with the kids that want to be there. And so
Mhm.
that's always a fun part. Also, we're working with kids that and there's a lot of circumstances that we're working with some kids that don't have the most talent, but they're great kids, and so we're gonna work as hard for that type of kid as we do that's maybe a Division I athlete. And, we got great staffs in all of our sports at Fremont High, and really proud of it.
Is there a football like a year in football where you were coaching where maybe the talent didn't match up to like all the big Class A schools, but you guys really competed? And I know, like I think was it when we were in middle school, Jake, we made the playoffs. I remember
Yeah.
that team. We
Yeah.
made some big upsets, and I know there's been Fremont teams that we may not have the skills as the bigger schools, but we got a lot of guys that want to compete. What are some of your favorite teams that you've gotten to coach over the years?
Yeah, there's a lot of them. You guys interviewed Trevor Strong
Hmm.
a while ago, and Trevor had a class of kids that I was lucky enough. I was a freshman coach at the time they came into the high school, and that freshman team it was Coach Roffers and myself and Coach Millard and
Hmm.
a retired coach named Coach Sanders. But that team went undefeated as freshmen, and so that was a lot of fun. And then Coach Roffers and myself both moved up to the varsity level within their varsity career also. And I can't remember if it was their sophomore or junior year, but we were lucky enough to be able to work with them both as young freshman kids and varsity football players too. And so that team I think made the playoffs and got beat by Creighton Prep 7-6, I think, and a pretty good football game. And a lot of years we're not going to match up with a lot of teams. That was a while ago. There's been a lot of teams in between then and now that I'm pretty fond of, and every senior class has a kind of a special place in a coach's heart, and especially as you become a head coach.
Hmm.
A couple of years ago, we had a class that was my first class of seniors that went through, and um, excuse me, Jack Cooper and some of those kids, um, a Richmond kid, and we just had a class that kind of got it, and it was when I got hired was in the middle of COVID, and so we couldn't get together, and we couldn't. And it was late. It was like late April, early May when I got hired, so didn't have a lot of time to organize and get together, and so I put a lot on those kids to hey, do it. You're gonna have to do it yourself,
Hmm.
and so they kind of hold a special place in my heart. We ended up going 6-4 that year and making the playoffs and getting a first round win, which was one of the first times in I can't remember how many years that we had a playoff win. So and like I said, those are just two kind of classes that stick out right now. But there's been a lot of kids
Mhm.
and a lot of classes that have gone through that really hold a pretty special place.
Yeah. What are some of the, like being the head football coach of a high school program, Class A in Nebraska, what is some of the things that obviously you want to teach them football and you guys want to win games, but what are some of the things that you really, really want to teach these kids and get them to learn over the years?
Right, and that's something I think we talk a lot to parents about. And
Yeah.
everybody wants to win. I mean,
Right.
Mhm.
it's Class A, and it is cutthroat, and it is, and I don't want to say win at all costs, but it's getting more and more competitive every single day. And
Mhm.
so, one thing we know is we're not an Omaha West Side type of school. We play with the kids that we get. We always convey the message that we want to. Be competitive and win as many games as humanly possible. But we're also going to try to help raise young men that are going to be productive in the community.
Hmm.
We're going to and currently having like leadership types of classes, how to lead in the right way, how to do the small things to bring your teammates up and do all those things that we're looking for on the field, but off the field also. And that's tough. There's a lot of things going on in and around every kid in the community and society in general. And so
Hmm.
I think just doing small things, we had a meeting on Monday and it's in April, or excuse me, it's in May, and we're just meeting about, okay, here's our summer schedule and here's this and here's that, and trying to teach them how to communicate,
Hmm.
and be able to
Mhm.
communicate
Yeah.
maybe some way different than a text message, but be able to walk into a classroom and talk to a teacher face to face and how that looks, and so the meeting's surrounded about our summer schedule, but at the same time, it's a two-faced meeting where we're saying, okay, here's how you're going to handle this now, and this is how you're going to have to talk to your teachers if you're going to be gone, or your coaches
Yeah.
if you're going to be gone for vacation. And so all those little things that
Yeah.
that come along with it. and,
Yeah.
and like I said earlier, we have a great football staff that helps do a lot of those things.
Hmm. Yeah.
Did you always like dream of being a high school football coach, or when you were
uh,
younger, did you want to coach
more of
college?
just being an assistant coach.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
never really had huge dreams of being a head coach. That kind of fell into my lap during that COVID time. Had two great head coaches at Fremont Hot before I was, or that I worked for, and there's been a
Mhm.
lot before that time also that I've gotten to know really well over the years that I've been there. But Coach Meyer, hired me and kind of moved me through the system, which was 100% right. I was hired as a freshman coach and JV and kind of made my way through the system. He ended up leaving and taking another job out of state, and so Seth McLean then was hired. And Coach McLean taught me a lot of different things. Also, became a defensive coordinator for Coach McLean, and then Coach McLean was lucky enough to be offered a administrative job, assistant principal, and so he took that, and that's when the job kind of came up, and I figured it would probably be between myself and a couple other guys that would be interested in the staff on the staff, and possibly somebody outside, and the pretty much the same day or within a day or so of Coach McLean taking the other job, I was offered the head job, and I did have to think. I'm not gonna lie. That was never really in our plans. Never really had thought about it. Never really thought Coach McLean would leave. And
Yeah.
so it kind of got blindsided by it, and talked with my family and a lot of the players. Honestly, a lot of the players' parents. And it was a pretty humbling experience, and I just felt like it was a responsibility that I was ready for and that I was excited to do.
Yeah. That would be pretty cool. So, what is it like? Do you call plays on offense or defense? Or obviously, you probably have.
Um, Yeah, so Coach Wynot
Yeah.
is still there, and he's our
Okay.
offense coordinator. So Coach Wynot's been around a lot of years
Yeah.
and been with me on all three of those staffs also. And he's a retired teacher that still loves coaching. That's his passion, and so he
Hmm.
is our offensive coordinator. Calls our offensive plays, and then I'm on the defensive side and call our defense.
So what's that like? You always hear like you watch the NFL like on ESPN and they say, oh, like oh, you guys thinking for the next play, the next play. What's that even like? They got their play sheet out. What's that even like? Like,
Well, for Coach Wynot, I know up in the box, he is up there always scheming and
Yeah.
drawing things up and kind of coming to the next play. And he does a great job. We have an offense that is really multiple and like a kid that joins our football team always wants to have a playbook, and so we
Yeah.
have something like that for him.
Mm,
But we also have to tell him at the same time, this is really liquid or fluid, right?
Mm.
It's going to change a lot, and so we try to come up with things, and Coach Wynot comes up with a lot of things that, terminology wise, we can call it any time, and it
Hmm.
maybe changes the routes or the run game or whatever it might be, but it's all within our system. And
mm,
so he does a great job of that, and it's going to require our kids to really stop and think a little bit. But the kids do a great job, and they
Hmm.
catch on and do a lot of things. And so he's in the box, and we communicate. He communicates down to a guy on the sideline, another coach on the sideline that is signaling that in. We have signals. We have a line coach that's signaling one part of the play. We have
Hmm.
a formation coach that's
Yeah.
signaling the formation, and then we have had a third coach signal the actual play
Yeah.
too. So there's a lot of moving parts
Yeah.
that go with it. Me on defense, I'm a little bit simpler minded. I just yell the defense that I want. Kids
Yeah.
get it and go. So
there you
yeah,
go.
Yeah.
I don't have quite as big a system as the offensive guys have, but it
Yeah.
works for us.
I remember when I was playing quarterback and Coach Wynot tried explaining all these things to me, and then I told him I was like, Coach, I don't know. I'm probably just gonna move out of the pocket and bootleg right. Let's be honest. And so I was a JV quarterback, and there's some good and bad things, but yeah, but that's I was just wondering. It's all this stuff these days with like hand signals and all this play stuff.
Right,
So
yeah, yeah, and it's a lot of the same stuff that we did when you were playing quarterback,
yeah,
Jake. I know I was on. I think was I the head JV coach when you were
you were the
playing?
JV
Yeah,
coach, yeah.
yeah. So, it's a lot of the same stuff.
Hmm.
You'd probably come around, but
Yeah,
you hear a play call and you'd probably know what it is. But
yeah,
nothing too complicated.
yeah,
A lot of signaling and the kids do a good job of catching
yeah.
on.
In your time as head coach, have you seen a lot of players like step up, like you said during COVID, like lead the team when the coaches aren't able to be around them, like obviously during COVID, but you're not around the players
Right,
24/7.
right.
So have you
Yeah,
seen like players step up and be leaders, like either verbally or just by doing their job on the
Hmm.
field?
yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one thing. I still teach at the middle school, so I'm not at the high school itself. I do have
Hmm.
quite a few assistants that are there, so we still have a lot of eyes and people making contact and things like that. But we set the expectation that the kids have to take on the team, especially the seniors, right? Those are the guys
Hmm.
that's their team, and we really make sure that they know within that first meeting. So I talked about the April or May meeting that we just had, and that's kind of the first time that we do winter conditioning and we do all those things and we're together. But we have so many kids that are multi-sport athletes, and so we don't get to see everybody at once until really that spring meeting. And so I'm not going to bother the basketball guys when they're in the middle of basketball season and those types of things. So when we get back together in April or May and have our sign up meeting, more or less is kind of what it is, and we tell the senior class right then and there, hey, it's your team. And honestly, we do that at the banquet in
Yeah.
November, and so they, I think, have seen it, and it's not any different than any of the other coaches that I've worked for. That tradition and that expectation just moves to the
Hmm.
next class, and they're
Hmm.
the guys now. They're the dudes, and so their success is in their own hands, and we
Yeah,
have to make sure that they understand that and they know what we expect. And if they know what we expect, they're going to be able to convey that message pretty easily.
yeah. So you got the track coach, teacher, summer program, spring, a lot of stuff going on, and so between all of that, outside of teaching and coaching, what kind of what do you find yourself doing?
Yeah, yeah, married to my wife, that Megan, that is really supportive in what we do and what I do, I should say. She's made a lot of sacrifices to be able to do what I want to do, and I really appreciate that. We have two boys. One's going to be a sixth grader next year, and one's actually going to be a freshman at Fremont High, and so
Oh,
We're
nice.
all excited and maybe a little bit nervous about that
Yeah.
experience and how that's going to
Mhm.
go. But
Yeah.
outside of the realm of everything, we try to get together and go do things on ourselves. We go down to Plattsmouth, Beaver Lake, and boat on the lake down there a little bit with Megan's family, and then my folks
Nice.
own a cabin up on the Missouri River
Mm.
by Niobrara, Nebraska. So we try to get on the water about as much as possible outside of our summer conditioning and open fields and camps
Hmm.
and all
Yeah.
the other stuff that's going on. It keeps us pretty busy, but we try to get a little relaxation in and on the weekends.
What's it like to coach your kid, like help them in their sports? Is it a pretty
Yeah.
I
cool
don't know
feeling?
yet. I
You
haven't
don't
done
know?
it.
You haven't coached them in middle
Yeah,
school or anything?
no, well, no. I've kind of let the youth sports stuff
Yeah.
run its
Yeah.
course. That I'll probably have a chance a little bit later
Yeah.
on, and uh, it, you know, I think it's a fine line, and there's a lot of guys that have done it. Coach Sellen at the high school had
Hmm.
both his boys come through the high school, and both Jake and Drew had great careers. Drew's actually playing football at Morningside right now currently, and I know he's going into a sophomore season, and sounds like he's going to have a pretty big role on their team. And Jake pole vaulted down at Nebraska for a while, and I think he's graduating now. But kind of watching him and knowing how he handled things and did things, I have a pretty good idea on what I get myself into. But it's a fine line between dad and coach, and so we'll have to kind of see how it goes,
Yeah.
and I think there's other coaches around to be a little bit of a buffer also
Yeah.
if needed.
So
And
do
coach, we
they
like
play
to,
football? Like, cause
yeah.
dad's, I'm sure like over the years, like growing up, dad's football coach. I'm sure you've brought him to practice, like just bring him up.
Right.
So I'm sure you've done a great job. Like pressure, like
Yeah.
do they do track and football?
Yeah, they kind of play the same type of sports that my wife and did,
Mm.
but yeah, so all
Nice.
both of them play football in the fall, basketball in the winter, and then do track in the spring. And so their
Nice.
track season just wrapped up. They had their last track meet
Mm.
this last weekend, and so they've been coming to summer conditioning and
Yeah.
open fields and 7-on-7 and camps and basketball games and all that stuff at
Nice.
Fremont High for as long as I've been
Yeah.
teaching there. So like I said, Hudson, the oldest one, is going to be a freshman, and he's pretty excited to get up there.
What
Yeah.
position does he play?
I don't know yet. He's played a little bit of everything. He broke his collarbone last year in eighth
Oh.
grade during his first
Ooh,
game, and so
dang.
he came back from it. Well, he's going to be all right, but he didn't get a whole lot of experience there. So
Mm.
just looking at him and knowing kind of what he did in the preseason and the first game of the year last year, he's probably a receiver type of guy that's going to play maybe a little bit of outside linebacker or something like that.
Oh, nice. So, we like to talk about adversity and overcoming adversity. Is there a game that sticks out to you for the football team or even like watching a runner for track where they faced a lot of adversity and it was really cool to watch them overcome it?
I think there's a lot of that. I think there's quite a bit of adversity, and I kind of mentioned it before. Our school is one of the smaller Class A schools, and I think just competing at the Class A level week in and week out
Mhm.
is pretty. You talk about going through adversity. It's pretty competitive, right? It's
Yeah.
tough. We've had some schedules that are a little bit more favorite to us, and there's some schedules that are a little bit tougher also. And so we got a little tougher schedule, and then SAA does a pretty good job of formulating their schedules. But when you have some success for a couple of years in a row, then they expect you to play
Mm.
some of the bigger dogs in the schedule. So I think year in and year out, we're facing a lot of adversity just with our population and
Hmm.
our the size of our school and going against a lot of those Class A schools. You talk about getting into an actual game. We've really liked the way our kids have battled. Was it 3 years ago? My first year as a head coach, we played Grand Island, who was the number 7 team in the state at the time, and went back and forth with them. Got into overtime. Scored a touch. No, no, excuse me. Didn't go to overtime. Scored a touchdown right at the end. No, 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 excuse me. I'm getting games confused. We did go to overtime. They scored first, and we came back, got the ball, knowing that we needed to score and either kick a field goal or go for two to try to win. And so we scored within the first couple of plays. And then we had to make a decision whether or not we wanted to go for two or kick the field goal or kick the extra point, I should say. And we had been kind of losing bodies and losing some of a couple of our senior guys. We had kids that were cramping, and it was just you just kind of had that gut feeling like we got to end this
Hmm.
one way or
Mm-hmm.
the other. And so Coach Wynot came up with a great play, and we just tagged the play with a name, and we practiced it all week, actually all season up to that point. I think this was probably the fourth or fifth game of the year. Kids executed it perfectly and got the pass off, scored a 2 point conversion and won. And you just talk about kind of
Nice.
battling through that adversity of some of the injuries that occurred during that game. Kids sticking with it, never giving up. Getting down. And the part I kind of forgot to tell you, we'd been up. I think most of that game, and Grand Island in the last 2 minutes scored to tie it. We go to overtime, and then they score the first touchdown, and so the momentum was really
Dang.
on their side, and so we really were proud, and multiple other things.
Hmm.
There's times and pieces of games and games overall that we were really proud of. The very next year, we played a Pius team at the very end of the year, and you guys know how it is at the end of a
Mm-hmm.
football season. You're a little beat up and downtrodden. We'd lost the week before to Omaha North to get knocked out of the playoffs. If we win at Omaha North and we play Pius, and we're playing Pius to go to the playoffs. So
Hmm.
our kids really were just playing for pride at the time, and something bigger too, to still have a winning season. But same
Yeah.
type of deal. We go into overtime. They miss an extra point. We kick the extra point and win. And just again proud of how our kids battled through things and did a lot of the small things to come out on top.
Yeah.
Well, that's
And isn't
great.
that so true? Like you as a coach and your teammates, you guys want to go to West Side and play out there. You want to go to Grand Island and beat them. You want to beat Norfolk. You know what I mean? So you
Absolutely.
want to be part of those big games and big rivalries. So yeah, and I think that raises the level on both sides.
Yeah, 100%. And one thing that we've always told our kids that we're proud of is what you just said, Jake. Is we want to go play the big teams. We want to play those teams that are in the top 10 and show people that we can play with anyone. And are we going to win every single one of them? Probably not. But we're going to give them everything we have. So we're not going to complain and mope around when the NSA gives us a tough schedule. We're going to go out and play it and do everything that we can to compete and see where the chips fall.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Coach, we'll be watching you this upcoming season, and good luck with the rest of your track season. I know we talked a little before. You got some girls going to state, right?
Yeah, yeah, we have I think 12 athletes and 13 events, and the boys had a good amount of kids going too, and so both sides are excited to get down to Burke and let it fly a little bit.
Nice.
Yes.
Well, good luck with both those sports, and we'll be watching you. So thanks for joining us, Coach.
All right, thanks guys, it's
Yeah.
great to see
Thank
you.
you.